Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and a sleepy Michael Reed. Thank you for tuning in to the Burgundy Zone. We are a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. The title of this episode is called The Process, so we have some guests coming up here very, very soon for you guys. But talk about this process, the big news of today, the Commanders hired or agreed to hire Dan Quinn. Reed, what is your immediate reaction from hiring Dan Quinn?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is Kyle done talking yet? I'm just kidding. No, dude. I mean, the same thing that I think everybody did at first. It was just kind of like, I mean, I obviously had a couple days to prepare for it because we figured that it was coming. But let me tell you, I'm one of those fans. I talked myself in quick. All of a sudden, I'm pumped on Dan Quinn. It took me about 30 minutes. And all of a sudden, I'm like, coaches love him, players love him, everybody loves him. Look at what he did with the Dallas defense. So, hey, man, I'm ride or die Dan Quinn. I've always been a huge Dan Quinn guy. I've wanted Dan Quinn number one since the beginning, baby. Who's Ben Johnson? I wanted Dan Quinn the whole time. I've been calling for it, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Before we talk about Dan Quinn, let's talk about the Ben Johnson debacle. Hall. I know obviously we've heard about that before with like McDaniels and other things like that, but did you imagine something that disrespectful?
Yeah, no, it was definitely weird, definitely disrespectful. I guess some people are down at the Senior Bowl or talking to like executives and people down there saying that it's not a good look towards Ben Johnson. So there's definitely a good look, definitely a check for us as far as like some. In the past, people would be like, "Oh, what did Washington do to screw that up?" Type thing. Where this time around, it's where like it's almost like a clean slate, where it's like we're getting the benefit of the doubt for once, and so it also feels kind of weird. But as far as Ben Johnson goes, like definitely weird. Definitely was a shock. Definitely was, I would say, a blower in the sense of the fact of we're going to go quarterback at number 2. So it's like you would hope that you would get that offensive guy to kind of grow with the quarterback that whoever gets selected. But at the end of the day, and I really like thought about it and sat back. If like all the stuff that reports were true as far as like the amount of money he wanted, which is ridiculous, you're a first time head coach. Why are you trying to make as much as like Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, guys like that are already proven winners? But secondly, if it's because he wanted like a proven quarterback and he didn't want to like have to maybe deal with a rookie or deal with a rebuild because he wants to like step into a good situation. Okay, I feel that, but to me that just says,
right,
okay, cool. I don't want you as my coach because I want someone to look at this like, okay, I can turn this around. I'm confident in my coaching abilities. I'm confident in my leading abilities that I can get the right players in. Peters can get the right players. I can get the right coaching staff. We can develop these players and do what we're doing in Detroit and get out of my comfort zone and make this team Detroit in DC type thing. And so for me, like I said, after I thought about it and I sat back, I was like, damn, that's a blower. But once like I said, I was like, I don't want you to coach my team anyway, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it. But like I said, end of the day, definitely weird. And I'm definitely glad that he didn't sign the contract and then kind of do a McDaniels thing where agree to like be the coach and then back out of it like a day later. So
right, and like, but the thing is, it's weird because when Nicky Giaballo, whoever asked him in Detroit about it, he said he's really looking forward to meeting with Adam Peters, and then
clearly he's just been lying the whole time.
yeah, literally didn't even meet with him. Told him, actually, you know what? Don't even come. I'm straight. I've told you guys, my conspiracy theory is that this is Jerry's doing. And that Jerry told him, I'm going to hire you next cycle. My team's to be set up for you. And he's looking at that saying, oh, yeah. But so if you'd rather coach Cowboys, better luck to you, man. I'm going to have fun kicking your ass. But honestly, with Ben Johnson, it doesn't surprise me very much. I've always had just kind of like an off feeling about him. I told you guys from the get-go, I was more mindset of the GM and everyone being on one vision. I wasn't offensive or defensive heavy in that regard. For head coach, I wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. And at this point, it does seem like that. I know why everybody is kind of up in arms, so to speak, because it definitely does seem like we settled, I guess you could say. But in the whole grand scheme of things, what Ben Johnson did really shows you that the dude's a cuck. And I'll call him this. From now on, he's going to be called Cheddar Bob from 8 Mile. You know, he shot
He is kind
himself.
of a cheddar Bob. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's in
he's
Detroit.
rolling with
Yeah.
Eminem. Yeah, you roll up that with Eminem up the Ford
Cheddar
Field.
Ben.
Just don't shoot yourself in the leg in the middle of a robbery or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, but let's not discriminate against the rap god. Calm down. All right. But
Mhm.
no, yeah, Ben Johnson's such a beta move, dude. But it is what it is, dude. I never wanted Ben Johnson from the jump. I always said I didn't want Ben Johnson. No, he's that is such the disrespect. You're telling me he showed us disrespect? That's all I'm gonna say. Have fun with that, Benny boy. Have fun up there playing second fiddle because you're too scared to take on more responsibility because you're unsure of yourself. Have fun with that, Ben. Go ahead. I have nipples, Ben. Could you milk me? No.
No,
Oh
and
yes, Ben. I have a nipper. Could you milk me? That's an Asian guy playing Robert De Niro.
I love it. But
Ben,
Hall,
I have a nipper. Could
he
you milk me?
Reed already talked about Dan Quinn. But with you, what is your feeling with Dan Quinn? I did see your tweet earlier today, talking about kind of a meh kind of feeling you had from it. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who kind of, if not they feel the same way, they definitely feel probably more emotional in the bad side in that regard. But kind of talk about how the news came about today.
Yeah. Basically, like you said, it was kind of, I've already been, like Reed said, I've already kind of been preparing myself for it because once Ben Johnson got cold feet and did some hoe stuff, backed out of it last second, cool, all right, whatever. Pretty much, we already knew that it was going to come down to like a Dan Quinn, Anthony Weaver, and Aaron Glenn. I didn't really see them opening up back to search again because the Senior Bowl is about to be this weekend. You got the combine coming up soon. You need to like just get these
If they
guys in
opened it
place. Get
back
the
up,
coach.
it would look like they were panicking too. It would look like they
Exactly.
were
You need to get your coaching staff in place
yeah.
and figure all that stuff out. But so yeah, I was already kind of preparing myself for it, and like I said, as far as like on the scale of like exciting and like yeah to like what are they doing? It was like in the middle. It was in the middle. It's meh, but I've already shifted my mindset once I knew that it was not going to be Ben Johnson or Mike McDonald. I'd already shifted my mindset to all right. We already got the GM, so hopefully he can almost duplicate what he did in San Francisco and what they got going on over there. And the next things that are most important to me are the offensive coordinator and who they're going to pick at number 2 at the quarterback, and how all three of those guys, especially the offensive coordinator and the QB, are going to mesh together and develop. So as long as we still have Peters, as long as we can get the right quarterback, and as long as the offensive coordinator, which there's been rumblings about some San Francisco guys, I think that if those three and those like can all mesh and pair together well, I think we're still in a good spot, even though the head coach is a meh type of splash hiring.
Yeah, and then like if looking at this, like if you're expecting, like a lot of people when they're looking at these head coaches, like obviously the league is trending toward these head coaches that design their own plays, that kind of implement their system into what they're doing and growing from there. And this sort of situation, the one big cog I have with the Dan Quinn hiring is the number 2 overall pick. Because at this point with Dan Quinn, I do think that you have to think about trading back more so than taking a quarterback at this point. Because if you're going to go OC, who do you trust to be able to work with a rookie quarterback? Are you talking Eric Bieniemy? Like, is that what you want to go with? Because that's what's most likely going to be flirted around in that building. And that's the kind of question that I have is, now that you have Dan Quinn, I have more questions. And that's what I don't like is having more questions and not more answers in that regard. What I really don't like here is that what happened was that the media, nationally and locally, were really clamoring for Ben Johnson and these other guys, right? And really going ham on it. And if Dan Quinn truly was our number 1 from the get-go, why wouldn't you step in at some point and say, stop that? That's not happening. I don't want you to pick, because now the thought process on everybody in the fan base is this is your third option, right? And so if it was your first option, you should have said from the get-go it wasn't there. So in that being said, with that reality, looking at it in the grand scheme of things, I told the guys at Discord last night, I'm in the cornfield. I'm confused. I'm not naked.
Running naked backwards,
but I am
of course.
clothed. I'm clothed and I'm confused just a little bit. But I understand that this is a long process, and they went with leadership, and I totally get that. I think long term, this puts a cog into the rookie quarterback discussion. Because Hall, I know your reaction to what I said that, but the reality is Dan Quinn most likely will not be outliving that quarterback's contract. Do you know what I mean? And that's
Well,
the part that's I'm taking a step
that's why
back.
you got to nail the offensive coordinator and the quarterback, because say whatever happens with the, like I said, so say they're talking about like Clint Kubiak in San Francisco being a name that can be the offensive coordinator. Okay, cool. If he can develop and grow the quarterback, and we start winning games, whatever, blah blah blah. All right, cool. The offensive coordinator gets plucked. Well, I would assume that hopefully Clint Kubiak is going to bring some guys with him from San Francisco, like to be his QB coach, be the wide receiver coach, tight ends coach, whatever. And those guys will just kind of, just like San Francisco does, they lose a coordinator, they just keep cycling through the guys they've been bringing through the farm system up, getting ready to be that play caller, just in case our guy gets plucked from our team because we're successful. So I'm hoping with Peters being in San Francisco, seeing how they've done it there, they can, like I said, just like with picking the players, drafting whatever well, developing the players well, they can do the same thing here where it's a farm system of you're constantly finding that next coordinator within your system already to keep working with the quarterback to keep that same system and keep that same consistency with the quarterback. And at the end of the day, honestly,
That's hard to do.
yes, it sucks that the quarterback has to learn a new system here and there, blah, blah, blah. If your quarterback is good, if your quarterback's a franchise guy, he's going to be able to pick up a system and learn it, hopefully, and thrive in it anyway. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's a man hiring. I would have preferred offensive hiring, especially in this day and age. You look at all the data, it supports offensive coaches and offensive head coaches. But I truly believe that their number one choice was Ben Johnson. Him backing out last second, they had to not really scramble, but I think they were like, all right, let's hit up Mike McDonald, see if we can still get him in, blah, blah, blah. At that point, Mike McDonald had already put in his mind, well, if I'm their second choice and I'm Seattle's first choice, why would I go with the team that's the second choice for me instead of the first choice for me? So he's on the Seattle. And at that point, they're like, well, yes, we've been high on Dan Quinn. Let's maybe interview the other guys, maybe talk to the other guys again, like Anthony Weaver, Aaron Glenn, blah, blah, blah. But I think that once the first two guys were plucked, it was going to be Dan Quinn regardless because he was already high on their list of coaches anyway, outside of the two young guys. So,
and by all accounts, I mean, you've heard for weeks how well Dan Quinn interviewed with them, though. Like they definitely liked him to some extent, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that they had plans. I'm sure it was like Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. It's probably where Quinn falled, which is what it is. That's fine. But I mean, I do still think that they liked Dan Quinn. I do think that they feel comfortable moving forward with him. So that's exciting. I guess, like I said, huge Dan Quinn guy. Always been a Dan Quinn guy. He was always number one on my list. So.
And I will say this though, even if you look at Michael Phillips' tweet though, he was like the Dan Quinn hiring as a fan base 1 to 10, a 2, and like whatever the second one was
6.
Yeah, the media it was like that's a 6, and all the people throughout the league, people that were like give coaches, their opinions, GMs, that are like the upcoming coaches, GM, blah blah blah. The insiders are all like, oh, that's a great hire. So obviously, us as fans, we want the big splashy, sexy name, but at the end of the day, can we just kind of like build something? Like, can we just start off like being an average franchise? Like, why we got to just go from like 0 to 100? You know what I'm saying? Like, so maybe we need a guy like Dan Quinn instead of the big flashy guy. Maybe we need a guy in his second run go around that's done it before, and maybe he's like, I'm like really talking myself into it.
I was literally going to make the joke.
That's something Schefter said too, though. Schefter said one of the reasons that we went with him was because like we were super surprised at just how many people in the NFL.
That's also them spinning it to Schefter. But, oh yeah, we wanted to pair him with a first-time GM. We didn't want to put him with a first-time head coach. Yeah, you did, because your first choice is Ben Johnson. Your second choice is Mike McDonald. Those are first-time head coaches.
And everyone was saying that Schefter was showing that he's still the GOAT, still has control of things. This morning, like 8 hours ago, he was saying the Commanders could take weeks to be able to hire their head coach. And look, it took hours for them to do it. Just going to show that nobody truly knows. But to give Dan Quinn a lot of credit, with Micah Parsons, obviously he got drafted as a middle linebacker, right?
He's not coming here, Kyle. He's gay.
I got it. But what he did is he moved him to edge rusher, right? And imagine having the stones to tell Jerry Jones that your first-round draft pick, you're moving positions for him, and it's going to work, and it's going to benefit you. Not only is it going to benefit you, it's going to turn out a top 5 unit and possibly one of the best edge rushers in the league right now. And that's the sort of thing that you really like about Dan Quinn, is that he has the balls to say to somebody who in that sort of power to say, no, I'm telling you this will work, but also having the eyesight, the foresight to be able to see what could happen with that prospect, knowing it, executing it, and getting the most out of it. And this defense in particular, KB said it on Twitter earlier today, and I totally agree with him. Emmanuel Forbes should be ecstatic about this, because one thing you know about Dan Quinn's defense is those corners, regardless of who it is, they eat. And they get opportunities because of what is being brought to the quarterback. And obviously Mike has a lot to do with that. But I do think that Dan Quinn does know how to get that combo out there and knows what to look for.
Remember Al Harris? They asked him if he would take over defensive coordinator. Like, it was a media thing. They were talking about him being defensive coordinator of the Cowboys after Dan Quinn left. And he was like, I'd follow Dan Quinn to Alaska if he asked me to. Like, I don't care. So, like, that's got to be good. I mean, obviously he's a DB guy, former DB. And that's got to feel good, man. Look at what, obviously, the Legion of Boom. And then you got Deron Bland and Diggs up down there in Dallas that just feast getting interceptions. Emmanuel Forbes should be pumped. He finally gets to get off Survivor and put on some weight.
That's so stupid.
I just take any opportunity.
Let's go to our.
I shouldn't do that.
Let's go to our fan questions now that we're on this topic. Reed, this is from the Colonel. Can we expect Dan Quinn to bring any of his assistant coaches from Dallas to Washington?
I mean, I saw something that was talking about their secondary coach Witt or whatever, who's somebody who could possibly be plucked. Same with Al Harris. I don't know. I don't even know Dallas's coaching staff. I don't care. We got Dan Quinn. We're the man. I don't care anymore. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't looked into it.
One name I will say, Colonel, that I really hope that does get brought over here is Will Blackman. Obviously, he played here for Washington as a safety and corner. He actually helped out the Cowboys secondary. He was I think like a interim secondary coach in their training camp last year.
He's basically like an intern. He's like the intern program, basically.
And he had a lot of fun with it, obviously. And you kind of saw that unit take a step. And obviously, Al Harris and company all have a hand in that. All I'm saying is, because Will did not get the full-time position, I would like to see Will get brought back here as a coach, as an assistant coach in that sort of regard to help the secondary unit. I think that's somebody that I would love to see here. But obviously, we would all love for our Dan Quinn to steal Al Harris away from Dallas. But we have to be realistic in the fact of Dallas wants to replicate and continue what they have. And would they be willing to walk away from Al Harris in that regard in order to allow that to happen? I don't think so. But maybe they go down the Bill Belichick route. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw something about, like Reed was saying, the defensive backs coach, Joe Witt, would maybe come with Dan Quinn as his defensive coordinator. And like you guys said, obviously what the defensive backs have looked like and played like. I know Al Harris is like one of those names that gets brought up a lot, like with their success. And obviously he's an ex-player, so he knows what it's like being in the locker room. He's probably like a Dan Quinn guy where he can relate to the players and whatnot, meshes with them really well. And obviously he's a corner that played at a high level, won a lot of games, or played a lot of games in the NFL, played on some good teams, obviously, with Green Bay and whatnot. So, and Philadelphia also. So I think that, if he can bring Al Harris with him, maybe, I don't know what his title is. It's like really with Dallas, but maybe he gets like some type of elevated title here with us, hopefully, if he plucks him. But I don't really know the whole coaching staff because I don't really like care about Dallas. So, but yeah, I mean, hopefully he does because that defense is good. So if you can bring some of their staff over here to coach up our guys, I'm all for it.
Now this next question from the Colonel Hall: can we expect Dan? My bad. Same question. How about Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator?
No. It's been proven in the NFL. I mean, maybe he's changed or whatever, blah, 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 but he's more of a college coach to me. He's more of like his offense might work like the first go around for 1 year, but once defenses see it, adjust to it, it doesn't work as well going forward. He's a guy that rubbed a lot of players the wrong way in the locker room in Philadelphia. We just got through an era of all that ridiculousness off the field, in the locker room, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get past that. I don't want a guy like Chip Kelly maybe coming in and he seems like a guy to me that also is like an ambitious guy. I don't want him coming in here and trying to like backdoor Dan Quinn to try to like get his job and stuff like that.
He's not Reed now.
Yeah, I'd backdoor Dan Quinn
I'm sure you would. And
for a
like,
job. For a job.
and especially hearing him coming from Salisbury, playing 4 seasons at Salisbury from 89 and 93, was elected into the Salisbury Hall of Fame in 2005. Really cool. We partied sometimes at Salisbury, and it's always a crap show. But Colonel, I will say this with Chip Kelly: anybody that's willing to allow Deshaun Jackson to walk and for him to continue what he was doing, I'm sorry, man. I can't value that guy's opinion in the pros. Like in college, I'm sure he's fantastic, being able to talk with young kids and being able to do that. But obviously, at this level, his relationship ways of doing things, I don't think is very good and beneficial for everybody involved. And so I would say, I respect the guy schematically. He didn't get anybody killed like Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, but he still has a lot of skeletons in his closet, I believe, and I don't want to go down that route. All these different, like the one college coach I would say I would entertain is probably Kingsbury. If we do have the chance to draft Caleb Williams, like you're saying, that's the one scenario I could see us drafting a rookie quarterback with Dan Quinn, is being able to couple him with an OC that he's very familiar with in the same sort of system that they do. But I find that hard to believe.
Yeah. One thing. Shout out Steve at Air Raid Concepts on Twitter. He's a good guy. He's always got good info. One thing he did say was, like, "What's up?"
He blocked me a while back.
Oh, probably because of your shit takes.
Nah.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. You always have good takes.
It was over Brian Robinson. I just said something
No.
stupid. I thought
Yeah,
because
you
I made a
probably said-
comment after he got shot. Like made a comment like, did like the girl he was meeting like set him up or something? Like I didn't know who he was with, and he was like, "I know the Robinson family. How dare you say that about them?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, I was just thinking of theories.
Sorry,
dude.
I'm just
and
a
then
random guy.
And then he
on Twitter.
blocked me. And then he blocked me and like, no, dude, it was Brian Robinson's girlfriend. I was like, okay, my bad. I thought it was a random. My bad. I didn't. What? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That's super funny. But he
weird
did
day
say
on Twitter.
that from what he knows. And look, I don't follow Chip Kelly. I don't know. I don't care about Chip Kelly. I don't want that chip on my shoulder. Damn, that was bad. That was a bad joke. But he did
That
say
was pretty
that Chip
good,
Kelly
actually.
has, if you've paid attention to him, Chip Kelly has changed his system over the last few years. So that would be, who knows how interesting it is. But no, pass on Chip Kelly. I hate him. He's disgusting, and I hate him. I hate looking
Did
at
Chip
him.
Kelly change his system to more white? Is that what he did?
Okay.
Chip Kelly's
let's
going to
not
bring over Riley
Kyle,
Cooper as wide
February.
receivers coach.
Yeah.
We're drafting Lad
He's the new
McConkey.
offensive.
Drafting
I
Lad
know you would
McConkey
like
in the
that.
first.
And in that case, Kyle, you should
We're
really
definitely
want Chip
drafting
Kelly.
Drake May if that's the case.
Dude,
I love
real.
Drake May. I'm all for it. Then fucking bring in Chip Kelly, dude. We're gonna get Drake May out of it. Bring in Chip Kelly.
Yeah, right. Now this
I
next
think we can
question.
get Drake May without Chip Kelly though.
This
That's
question in the
Oh
Discord
yeah, never mind. That's true.
from
Shit,
Deluxe.
didn't think that one through. Abort.
Reed from Deluxe. Does Kendall Fuller fit a typical Quinn defense?
I'd say Kendall Fuller is one of those corners that can really kind of fit in any sort of defense, right? Because I mean, he's so experienced. He's good in man. He's good in zone. He's just solid, very solid. But when you think of Dan Quinn, defensive backs, I mean, at least like in Seattle, they were big. Trayvon Diggs, I know he's a little thin, but he's pretty big. He's 6'2". I do think he likes some of those taller corners, but I mean, I don't know how tall is Deron Bland. Is he like 5'11", 6 foot or something?
Bland?
So
Is Bland's not the
yeah.
one that's 6'5", is he?
no,
They have a
that's-
safety
That's
who's
their
big.
safety. That's
that
what's
Curse?
his face.
I think it's
Huh?
Curse.
A Curse at 6'5"? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, Quinn, like I said, in Seattle, he had Brandon Browner and Richard Sherman, who were both big old boys and loved popping the Adderalls. And then in Dallas, yeah, I mean, you look at Trayvon Diggs, he's bigger. But I think that somebody like Kendall Fuller, somebody that could really fit any sort of system just with his playing style. So it'll be interesting to see. But remember, we're not birds, we're people. I watched Love on the Spectrum last night, and one of the girls says that. It's so funny. She's talking to the guys counting birds on the beach, and he's like, "There's 6 seagulls out there," and she randomly just goes, "Yep, but we're not birds, we're people." It's like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I don't know.
Reed, man, why?
One day.
But to answer your question, To answer your question, Deluxe, with what Fuller does best is when he's close to the line of scrimmage, because he's very good at blowing up screens in that regard. Like whenever there's one coming his way, he's very good at being able to penetrate, kind of like Reed on the weekends. But the other part is he does not fit Dan Quinn's defense in the sense of being man and having a heavy blitz sense, because Kendall is going to allow somebody behind him. He's better when he has space to work with between them. And so when getting put on an island, I would say not as much. I think Kendall has much more sense in like the cover three, sort of being able to read what's going on and then go. If Dan Quinn can be able to use him in that regard, I think so. But if Dan Quinn plans to be able to blitz a lot, I think Kendall might be at a disadvantage there. But for the most part, I think Kendall does fit what he wants to do. And I will say this, I think that Cam Curl would fit exactly what Dan Quinn wants to do. I don't care what anyone says out there. Somebody tweeted at me because I said the most important thing for this organization now is re-signing Cameron Curl now that they found that Dan Quinn. And somebody wrote, just let the overrated 7th round pick go. He's an overrated 7th round pick.
It's been a starter since his rookie year.
He's 24. He's 24.
What?
He's been in the league for 4 years. He's 24. You're telling me no other team is going to... All right.
Well, again, just apply logic here. 7th round pick, but it's been a starter since his rookie year.
7th round pick, overrated.
That's an overrated. I'll tell you what, man. That 7th round pick.
I think starting any
right
games
there.
in the league as a 7th round pick counts as underrated to me. But hey, I don't know.
Yeah, what do we know?
But yeah, I think he just short. I think I don't know if Dallas played a lot of cover 3 or not, but I know back when he was the defensive coordinator with the Seahawks, he was playing a lot of cover 3 with like the Legion of Boom and whatnot. They played a lot of cover 3. And like you just said, Kendall Fuller would probably thrive in a cover 3 type of scheme, just based on he's getting up there in age and just based on he's the type of cornerback that likes to read and react, like sit in the zone, read and react, jump routes when they come into his zone, and can obviously get up and press and like play the run game as well too, be the outside contain guy if he needs to. So I think that he could be able to definitely fit in his scheme, but the only problem is I don't know if they're going to be able to re-sign him back, because I'm sure another team that's got like a contender out there that needs some quarterback help, a veteran guy in there that can play some situational stuff. I think that they would want to add him to the roster.
Yeah,
I love how you guys gave like this in-depth thing about schemes and stuff, and I just focused on man's bodies again. I was like, well, he's 6. Diggs is 6'2". Legion of Boom, we're all big boys. God, I can relate anything back to men's bodies.
I know. I imagine what goes through your mind on a daily basis.
I know. That's all I'm thinking about.
Read this next question from Deluxe. What if part of the plan was to make Dallas scramble to replace coaches poached late in the cycle during McCarthy's lame duck year? Mwah. Who might Quinn bring with him?
Well, we kind of talked about who might Quinn bring with him, but I do think that definitely had to play into it a little bit. Dallas's defense has been so good since Dan Quinn was there that it's just one of those things. And obviously, look, they got some good guys. Obviously, Micah Parsons is unreal, unfortunately. But, I mean, that's got to play into it. Dan Quinn knows what he's doing. There's a reason he's so respected as a defensive coordinator and defensive coach. I do think that you gotta if it wasn't planned like that, which it may not have been, that may not have played in at all, it's definitely a sweet little icing on the cake. And trust me, we all love cake, especially Kyle. Kyle loves cake.
If you're like Skip Bayless or Michael Irvin or one of those national people that are on TV that just talk about the Cowboys 24/7, they'll spin it that like, oh, well, Michael Parsons got drafted 3 years ago, and that's when Dan Quinn got there, and that's why they've been so good. And we'll see what he does with this defense, and he's not going to have a Michael Parsons on his team, so we'll see. But I mean,
hey,
like you said,
you saw Michael.
I mean, no, it could.
You guys gave me last episode, but hey, I'm just saying.
No, it definitely could. But
Jahan Dotson was doing on Twitter today saying, "Hey, Micah, come on." You know what I'm saying?
Micah said he might take him with him wherever he goes. Yeah.
So
come on down, Micah.
Jerry Jones.
We don't hate you anymore.
But yeah, I mean, we already kind of talked about who he might pluck, I don't know. But,
yeah. We'll say he might pluck my bad. He might pluck Michelle Perkins away from them. I think he really good lineman, pretty good. I think not very fast though. I think he went to Temple, if I'm not mistaken, but he's a guy that could be brought over here with Dan Quinn. Michelle Perkins.
His name's really Michelle?
Yeah, Michelle Perkins. Yeah.
I don't want him.
He's an edge rusher. You didn't know him?
Did you hear my fart?
He's
I
doing.
farted to that question.
Stupid. Next question from Chris Comerton. Hall, do you think Peters and Quinn will bring on the 49ers passing game coordinator? We talked about already in Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, that was the kind of the word out there. Hopefully, that's a thing that's going to happen. Just because like the San Francisco ties, if you see what they're obviously Kyle Shanahan has a big hand in it with all the weapons around him, the play calling and whatnot. But do you see that what they've done with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and Clint Kubiak? He's called plays before in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins and kind of that Kevin O'Connell type offense, which is kind of that Shanahan type of style offense from McVay's kind of tree. But so yeah, I think that that would be a good thing. Hopefully, they can pluck some San Francisco guys. They've developed Brock Purdy into a obviously he's in the Super Bowl right now. So if you can turn a 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, into a Super Bowl playing quarterback, then anybody that had a hand in developing that guy, come on down.
With Clint Kubiak, I mean, I would understand the move, but it definitely does seem like one of those relative hirings, being that Adam Peters knowing Clint Kubiak.
Hey, hold on. We got Joe Witt.
Oh, we
As a
did?
D coordinator.
Apparently, yeah, Joe Witt's defensive coordinator.
Okay, good to
I
hear.
figured that, yeah.
That
Yeah.
the
Sick.
means.
Sick.
Does that
Sick.
mean that
Joe
Al
Witt, I'm
Harris?
looking at a picture of him. Joe Witt does have a wonky eye. He does have one eye that makes the rules that goes different places, but I like that. I think sometimes you have to have imperfections. Like Kyle. That's why I think you're so beautiful. You have so many imperfections.
You're right. That is absolutely right.
And at least
Now,
nobody can sneak up on him.
it's true. Now we are joined by our guest, Mr. Louie Tee from Louie Tee Network, that you guys know also well on YouTube. What's up, Louie? How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing great, man. So glad this coaching search is over. This thing was becoming exhausting.
Dude, being on Twitter's been the worst for the
Oh
last
my
2 days.
goodness. I mean, I did a video 2 days ago because I saw this coming. Now I didn't see the Ben Johnson curveball coming,
Right.
but the amount of negativity on social media, it's an evil, evil world. Social media is. You got to be careful, man. It is nasty up there. And
People get sassy too. People are getting so sassy about it. They're like, this is just Dan Snyder 2.0. It's like, is it though? How about you ask the cheerleaders over there if it's Dan Snyder 2.0? What are you talking about? Like, come on.
Ridiculous, man.
It's insane.
I had some fun with it, but at the end of the day, people are going to be people. You know, fans are going to be fans, and it is what it is.
My man, and we got some questions for you, Louie, but also some fan questions I'm gonna add in later on. But ever since they hired Dan Quinn last night and it was made official, this question has been racking my brain, and I am losing my grip on reality, Louie. So I need your help here. What do we do at number 2 now? Do you still think that we should be going quarterback with Dan Quinn as head coach, or do you think it's going to be contingent based on who is brought in at OC?
So I think when they interviewed Dan Quinn, so, you know, one of the buzz phrases has become aligned vision, right? Like everybody has to be on one accord. So if you're going through the interview process, you're going to want to make sure that we all are on the same page as far as where we're going moving forward. I think that quarterback conversation already took place. And so I'm assuming they're going to draft a quarterback. When you're a team, the goal is to never draft high enough to be in a position to draft a quarterback like we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're this high in the draft, if there are quarterbacks there that you love, you got to take one. If you don't already have one, obviously, because you don't want to be back in this position again. And I think they're going to have to take a quarterback. So at the end of the day, I don't think the decision to go with Quinn changes Adam Peters' vision as to what they're going to do. I think quarterback is still the main objective at number 2 or number 1 if they should trade up to get Caleb Williams.
And then Louie, it just got announced that that Dan Quinn is bringing over Witt as for defensive coordinator. It looks like we'll be putting him in as defensive coordinator here in Washington. What have you heard about Witt? What's your feelings with that hire? Do you like that?
So I have had Cowboys fans talk to me about Joe Witt, and they all had glowing things to say about him. They felt like had Dan Quinn moved on, that would have been the guy, him or Al Harris, to be promoted to defensive coordinator. So It makes a ton of sense that he's bringing Joe Witt with him to, run the defense. Now, again, the question is he going to be a figurehead or is he actually going to be calling the defense? I'm going to go back and kind of study Quinn and what he did the last time as a head coach. Did he call the defense himself or did he allow someone else to do that? And did he learn from that experience? Maybe this time around he wants to be more of a overseer, want to be more of a manager and not have to be bogged down by having a side of the football to deal with, but rather overseeing the whole entire team. So I think he's probably bringing him in to call the defense. This is a guy he's worked with the last 3 years. He trusts him. And I think that's ultimately going to be the role that he brings. And I would like to think that they kind of share similar beliefs in how they're going to run the defense. So I don't think there's going to be much of a change in terms of what we saw Dallas run. And I just like to think that our pieces, particularly in the middle, are going to be better and more adept at stopping the run than Dallas. They were very, very light up front, made it a lot easier to run the football against them. With Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, if he's still here, John Ridgeway, Fedarian Mathis, I think we can stop the run a lot better than the Cowboys were able to do.
I absolutely love it. Now, with Dan Quinn being here, with Witt being brought in here as defensive coordinator, not knowing what else is going to be brought in, we can even attribute this to offense if you want to, Louie. But if you could pick one player you think is going to be able to progress the most, that today is going to really progress their career in a positive light because of the acquisition of Dan Quinn, which player would you say that would be?
I would probably say Quan Martin. What I've seen from the Cowboys safeties in particular has been nothing short of spectacular. They took Donovan Wilson and turned him into a stud. They just gave him a contract extension last offseason. Nobody wanted Jaron Kearse. I mean, he was an afterthought. He was hanging on for his NFL career, his life, right? And all of a sudden, he turned into a very viable option under Dan Quinn. And then I'll give you one more name, a guy that was a former top 5 pick in the NFL. The safety out of Indianapolis. Why am I blanking on his name?
Malik Hooker.
Malik Hooker, thank you.
Yeah.
Turned Malik Hooker into a viable NFL safety again. Really good for the Cowboys. So I think safety is one of those positions. And I go back to his Falcons days. Alford was a really good safety for him. And Keanu Neal was really solid for him as well. He brought him to Dallas that first year to help him kind of turn the defense around. So I think he does a really good job with safeties. Took Marquise Bell with the Cowboys, who was an undersized safety, made him a linebacker essentially in their defense, or the Buffalo nickel, which is what we would have called it here, and had him down around the box making plays. I think Quan Martin is a guy that could potentially excel in his defense. And just any of the safeties in particular. If Cam Curl were here, if he's brought back, I think that's a guy that could excel under Dan Quinn's tutelage. Those guys that are hybrid players that can do a lot of different things, I think will really flourish under a guy like Dan Quinn.
My man. Now, to do a roundtable discussion to wrap up this episode, boys, we have a fan submission submitted in our Discord. But Louie, I'm going to go to you first. This one is from Tim Towner. If the status quo holds, we'll have 6 picks in the top 100. The trouble is we need help at more than 6 positions, and in some cases, one position may require multiple picks. If you were picking by position, how would you use those first 6 picks?
So obviously that's a convoluted question because the board is going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. But assuming that the situation is ideal, right, for all the positions that we need, quarterback obviously is first. Then I think you would have to go. I struggle with tight end. I think you can probably get one in the 3rd round. So I'm going to go D-line, defensive end specifically, and offensive line. So I'd go offensive line first after the quarterback, and then that second round pick would be a defensive end. After that, I would probably go tight end with that 4th pick. The 5th pick, I'm looking for a nickel bad. We need a nickel corner bad. So I'm probably looking nickel. If you don't bring back Kendall Fuller, you probably need a starter outside. So nickel boundary, I want a corner, a really good one, preferably a nickel at this point. And then probably double back and dip into that offensive line again. If there's one there that I love, the thing with offensive line that's a little tricky is we don't know what some of the parts that we currently have are. For instance, we
Right.
don't know what the center we drafted in the 3rd round last year, Ricky Stromberg, is, right? We don't know if he can play or not. We don't know anything about Braden Daniels. Can he be a viable guard in this league? We
Right.
don't know. Let alone forget about tackle. Can he even play guard, right? We don't know. Those guys might actually be formidable players for us, and that would eliminate need for as many resources being spent on the offensive line. And I think they're probably going to attack guard, particularly in free agency. So you may not need as much. If that is in fact the case, then I would probably go to like running back, speed running back, or I would go with a linebacker. You know, we really need to attack linebacker as well.
Yeah, I've been looking at that running back from USC because the pass catching backs in this draft, there's not that many, and most likely in the later rounds. I agree with you. I do think that quarterback is probably the way that you want to go, depending on what you want to do at OC. With Dan Quinn and the company, I'm not against trading back and going O-line. But that being said, the sake of the argument, quarterback first. In the second round of that top half, I would like to use a corner there because I'm not sure if TJ Tampa is going to be off the board. And if you need the number one corner, like we've seen from Dan Quinn's defenses, they got Trayvon Diggs, right? Do you need that number one corner? If you're able to supplement that right away to help Dan Quinn out to get his defense going, going to help you out there. And the second, and then that third pick, I want to go offensive line, possibly Chris Paul and Chris Paul's brother. I forget what is his first name? Patrick Paul. There's others down like Cooper Beebe is there as well. Jackson Powers, guys that you could really plug in and put in your offensive line. You get with that third pick, and then linebacker with the fourth pick, offensive line with the fifth, and then go back to I think running back or tight end with the sixth. I think Dan Hulker, the guy from Colorado State University that OC talked about, the kid can play, man. He's a beefy dude, kind of a Reed type of guy, and I would really like that. What do you guys think?
We talked about this like a week ago, so didn't we? I remember answering this about fixing the interior specifically. Like obviously quarterback one, and I wouldn't be opposed. Honestly, I know we have so many holes. The edge class, obviously, we need like an edge. We don't have an edge defender. The edge class doesn't get you too excited this year. I wouldn't be opposed to doubling up on O-line with our first 2 second-round picks, to be honest with you. I mean, if we're going to go like a center, like a Powers Johnson, and then even a Cooper Beebe, and because that right there just kind of helps solidify. Like you can get by with Charles Leno and what's his face? Forget his fucking name. Andrew Wiley for a season or so. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get by with them, average to below average tackles. It sucks. Obviously, I know we all want the sexy tackle, especially Kyle. But I think if you build the interior, all of a sudden you got a solid average O-line for the first season for this quarterback. But you got to do some combination with edge, linebacker, corner. You need playmakers, like you talked about specifically. A change of pace back for Brian Robinson is huge. Yeah, so it's tough. They can go so many ways, and like Louie was talking about, it kind of just depends on how the board falls. Like, I mean, you have every year there's players that drop. Every year there's players that rise. There's going to be risers. There's going to be fallers. So really just depends, and that's the beautiful thing about having a roster with more holes than Kyle's bank account, and that is that you can kind of go whatever direction.
Yeah, we might start charging this thing like Kime, dude. Start pumping in some money here. But
hey, I gotta take off. I gotta go.
Do your thing. Appreciate you, buddy.
Enjoy the day.
Take care.
Hey, Louie, this next question I want to ask you, I know you didn't answer that one, but I do want to come back to you for this next question. This one's really good from Tim Town in Discord, Louie. He said, last year I was all in on EB, and oh my, how I was wrong. And this year I was all out on Dan Quinn, and who gets the job but Dan Quinn? Well, Dan Quinn hired Shanny as OC when he went to Atlanta. Do you think he will follow suit and give the OC role to a young progressive kid, or go old school with another EB type, if not EB himself?
There's no way Eric Bieniemy could be brought back. Absolutely 0%. So I'm not even entertaining that thought. I do think he's going to go young. The name that keeps popping up amongst the fan base, and I think it's a great name, and it has ties to both guys, is Clint Kubiak.
Yeah.
Pass game coordinator with the 49ers. Obviously, there's a history there with Adam Peters. And I think this was the theory that I came up with, and I just pulled this out of thin air. I'm just tossing the dart. The reason why there were so many defensive coordinator or defensive side of the football candidates was because Peters had a plan of what he would like to do as far as an offensive coordinator was concerned. And he wasn't as concerned as we were about what he would do had the decision being a defensive minded guy. So I think that there's something here that, we don't know. Everybody's just assuming that he's picking from the same pool that all the other teams have been picking from, and that may not be the case.
So I just want to elaborate on what I think you're saying so the audience can really make sure that they're picking up what you're putting down. Mm-hmm. Basically what you're saying is you think that your theory is that Peters looking at this is saying, I'm not going after the offensive-minded head coach because my plan for offensive coordinator is good enough as is for what I have in mind, and I don't need to go do that. I'm going to go this other route, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So now Ben Johnson was the first option. So That's the way they wanted to go. But obviously when they had to pivot, understand that we only had 2 offensive-minded guys on the interview list, right? It was only 2 of them. The rest of them were all defensive candidates, and we were all looking like, what's going on here? That led me to believe that he had a plan in mind about how he would attack it should the defensive side of the football guy be hired. And so I'm not as worried about what they're going to do with the OC because I think Adam Peters has a plan. And again, they addressed that when they sat down and they talked to Dan Quinn. I think they talked about all these things because, again, the buzzword is aligned, right? So they're going to all be on the same page.
Absolutely. And that, I love the way you said that because earlier in the Discord, they asked us this question. I said, I think that you have to go old OC because so that he doesn't get plucked away from you for a head coaching job down the line. But now that you say that, Louie, I absolutely agree with you. And also because of Tim's question talking about Kyle Shanahan, obviously that's what something that worked for Dan Quinn before, and that's the route that he's going to go down. So, Louie, I'm smelling what you're smoking, brother. I think that you're right about that with Clint Kubiak because that would mesh. And you're talking about that one vision and Adam Peters saying, I got this young guy I believe in that I could put on the offensive side. He's worked under Kyle. You've been under that structure before. Are you cool with that? And I totally agree with you in that sense. And I also wholeheartedly believe that all these contract negotiations, i.e. Cam Curl, the draft picks, all of this was talked about in the interview process. I'm pretty sure Adam Peters and company already know if Dan Quinn wants Cam Curl back or not. And so that's what all of my tweet was about today in importance. They've already done all that jazz. That's why the interviews take 6 hours. You know what I mean? They have a lot of information to go through.
That's right.
Sorry, Hall.
Right.
Yeah, no, and just to kind of piggyback what off Louie was saying, that's what I was kind of saying earlier with them, the name Clint Kubiak getting floated out there. He's called plays under the Shanahan umbrella when he was in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell before he went over to before he went to San Francisco. And then Peters has been in San Francisco where, like I talked about earlier, where if they get their coordinators plucked, it's next man up because they cultivate that system where we're going to prepare you through our system to be that next play caller up just in case we're a successful team. We already know teams around the league are going to want to pluck our guys. We got to develop our guys to become the next guy up for us so that we can keep the train moving, keep the train rolling. And Peters came from that system in San Francisco. So I think that Clint Kubiak coming here, bringing some guys from San Francisco with him, like the quarterback coach, whatever offensive coaches it may be, all those guys are going to keep developing under the system. And say they have success with the quarterback and Clint Kubiak. Next thing you know, Clint Kubiak's getting plucked. Well, next thing you know, you got the quarterback coach or the wide receiver coach or whoever it may be, the tight end coach, who's that next rising star as the offensive coordinator, maybe play caller, to call your plays, and you just hopefully you keep the train rolling. So I think that he's definitely going to go the young route as far as offensive play caller goes.
Yeah, I agree with you now. I was totally wrong in the Discord because I was more so thinking about, because I think Pittsburgh has done a very good job being able to retain their OCs. That's because you hire an old white guy that nobody wants, and you'll be able to keep that going. But you need a good quarterback. To OC's point in our Discord, you made a good point. Yeah, you did inherit Big Ben, and that was easy to go along with that process. Not the same process here. I will say that I do agree with you in that regard. Now, the next question that we have, this is going to be really simple. I know, Louie, we've already answered this, but this is from Tony Franchise on Twitter. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate the question. We've already kind of answered it, but he asked, how likely is EB going to stay on the staff with Quinn being named head coach? And I know, Louie, you already said you think 0, right?
Correct. 0% chance. I don't even want to entertain the thought.
I mean, I said, with head coach, I said absolutely not. But with OC, it does intrigue me. But that being said, you guys have to understand, I have no idea what was going on behind closed doors. All I know is that what EB presented to us, to the cameras, and what others have said about him, what's being said. But the reason why I like the continuity is because of Sam Howell and that sort of offense. You're talking about now learning a new one, and one that's probably very complicated if you're talking about going down the Clint Kubiak sort of direction. What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, I'm with Louie. I think it's 0% just because of we've already seen we've already seen him try to develop a young quarterback, and the way that I'm not going to sit here and say he was horrible because for the first half of the season, people were talking about, oh, we might have something in Sam Howell, like he's showing flashes, he's put a couple games stretched together, he's done this, he's done that. His touchdown to interception ratio for the first half of the season was not bad. It was just about the pocket presence, cleaning up, holding the ball, and the footwork and whatnot. And
it's the consistency, bro. We saw great games, and then we'd be complete.
And that's kind of my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. Like, yes, he was kind of learning on the job, you might say. Who knows how much plays calling he was doing in Kansas City? But I would say that, unfortunately, and this just goes back to like them not firing Ron Rivera. If they wanted to actually see what EB had as far as a head coach, as far as him running everything, they've already got a good sense of him running his own offense because they've been around the building for the past season. They know what EB was doing, what he wasn't doing. So I think that they gave him a courtesy interview just because he's already been there. He's under contract. So he was that, like, in case all things like emergency, flashing red lights, break glass. Hey, we still got Eric Bieniemy under contract. We could always elevate him to be the head coach, but I don't think there's any way. Just from, like, again, you got grunt players kind of coming out and pushing back against him, which to me, I just look at it as like you're being soft because we've seen what all pro players, future Hall of Fame players have said about him. So who are you guys to be like, oh, he's pushing us too hard, blah, blah, blah. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, end of the day, I just think it's 0% chance. I think that he goes a young, kind of up and coming guy route like he did with Kyle Shanahan back in the day.
Yeah, with head coach, I agree with you guys.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Absolutely.
Did you guys actually think he did a solid job last year?
I would say it was a mixed bag. I can't say it was good. I can't say it was great. I can't say it was the worst. I can't, like, there was some good, there was bad. Like I said, there was games like the second half of the Denver game, masterpiece. The Eagles game, masterpiece. Both Eagles games, masterpieces. That 3-game stretch where we were like talking about Sam Howell, like, oh man, like especially that Seattle game, like we were talking about Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell are really developing, they're really meshing together. And then that second half of the season, I don't know what happened. I don't know where the disconnect started to come from. I don't know if Sam Howell hit a wall, and for whatever reason, EB just kept dropping him back. Like I'm not going to say he put Sam in the best positions to succeed, but I also would say that Sam was just making some boneheaded mistakes that you just can't make as a quarterback. So, yeah, I just say it was a mixed bag. If I had to put it on 1 through 10, I would say he did a 5, 4.5, 5 job, like just right in the middle, just because of, like Kyle said, it was just too much inconsistency. And it was just kind of with the Dan Quinn thing, where the last picture in people's head is, well, you just got to let the Packers put up 40-plus points on you in the playoff game. I don't want you as my head coach. My last resounding kind of picture of EB is that last half of the season where it's like that offense was not good at all. So why would I want you as my OC type thing, So that's kind of where I sit with it.
It's really hard for me, Louis, because EB has his excuses to use, right? But the thing that falls back on me with EB is even those excuses are there, you still had outlets in order to counteract those excuses. Like talking about the offensive line not being good enough, holding Sam Howell upright, Sam Howell not being able to get the ball out of his hands quickly or to the right place and everything. Well, run the football then. If he can't do the passing offense to the way that you want it to, then why are you doing it so much?
Exactly.
And my big thing, Louis, is whenever in these sort of situations, if I'm left with more questions, that's not a good thing. And the way that he called offensive coordinator this year, I was left with more questions. But that's why I like to say I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know, because they did say that they had a great interview with Eric. Like, did Eric kind of break down his vision, what was going on, and can they kind of point stats with excuses and say that makes sense of what doesn't, I don't know at the end of the day on what was effective or what wasn't. But I will say this: I don't like being left with more questions, and he did leave a hell of a lot of them. Because when you have Brian Robinson back there, who's a freaking freight train waiting to go, and you're just not using it, the whole question brought then was this like a trial year? And I don't like that question. I don't like thinking that way.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, he was awful. And I mean, there's so many reasons as to why. So one of the comments you read earlier said that he was all in on EB last year. So was I. I mean, that was the reason I thought we could be really good last season. Not just that. I thought Sam Howell was going to play really well. So, to my surprise, when I saw how he was being utilized, I was shocked. Like, wait a minute, this is a guy that came into the season with one start. Why are we throwing the football 40 plus times every week? And a lot of the excuses I heard early were, well, we've been down. No, we haven't been down in games.
They're coming out throwing the ball.
Right. You're coming out in the first half. He's got 25 passing attempts. No, that's not the excuse. And there's games where Brian Robinson is averaging 6.5 yards a carry, and he's got 9 carries for the game. And you're like, why did we stop running the ball? Right. And the game that did it for me, the game that cinched it for me was the week 7 game against the Giants, the first game, because all week long, all we had talked about was
run the ball.
We're gonna see blitz. We're going to see Wink Martindale's going to blitz. Got to have answers for the blitz. That's all we talked about. That's all he talked about at his press conference. We know what Wink Martindale's, and we came out and we acted as if we had never seen a blitz before. There was no screens. There was no quick game. We didn't take any deep shots until the end of the third quarter. And even Terry after the game said, we didn't take advantage of their aggressiveness until the end of the game. I wish we would have done it sooner. Like, what are we doing?
And that's my thing, Louie, is I don't like being left with more questions like that. With Eric Bieniemy, I would feel confident with Eric Bieniemy as OC if I wasn't left with those questions, if he was able to take advantage of those situations. Because just like you, we were very high on Eric Bieniemy when he was hired here.
Oh yeah,
and one of the reasons
everybody probably was.
And one of the reasons was we said this guy's going to put our players in a position to where they can succeed. Like these other teams where they're moving Tyreek Hill on a slot guy and being able to force him on a linebacker. We thought that was all going to happen, and then it didn't. And that's why I don't like being left with more questions, because like then to your point, Louie, what the hell are we doing here? And that's how the whole season felt.
We went into the season thinking, okay, Terry's about to have about 1,500 yards, right? Breakout seasons for him. Jahan is about to eclipse 1,000, right? Hell, Curtis is going to be a Swiss Army knife. They're going to use him like, they used Tyreek Hill or even Mecole Hardman or something like that here in Washington. Hell, even Diami might eat a little bit, right? We were thinking, Antonio Gibson.
I definitely was,
Antonio Gibson's going to be utilized.
Yep, like he's finally going to get unlocked.
Right? Oh my God, this is going to be crazy, right? We had to throw Terry a hitch
just to get him over 1,000
seconds left in the final game of the season. What happens if the defense doesn't get a stop at the end of the Cowboys game to get us back to football? Terry doesn't eclipse 1,000 yards.
And we threw the ball more than anybody else, Louie.
It doesn't make any sense that you're not getting your best players involved. And he told us when he got here, we just weren't listening. My ears were closed. I had rose-colored glasses on. I ran through stop signs. I ran through red lights. The man told us, I don't care about stats. I just want to collectively drag our asses across the finish line.
That's true. Yeah,
we just weren't listening. So when he said that, he said, I don't care about Terry McLaurin getting the football. I don't care about Jahan. There would be 3-4 games in a row. You would forget Jahan was even on the field. I literally would come out and say, well, Jahan ran cardio today. 2 targets, no catches. Look at Jahan out. And then Terry said it after a game. I was out running cardio. I said, well, I've been talking about Jahan running cardio for the last month. I mean, it's ridiculous. He can't be the offensive coordinator here this year. No way.
And that's what was probably the most demoralizing thing about this season, Louie, is we kind of expected the defense to take a slight step back, not be the top 3 against in third downs and everything like that, but we expected the offense to take the leap, right? But the offense really did not take a crazy leap like we honestly thought it would, and then the defense took a massive one, so there was nothing that we could hang our hat on. Literally nothing, not even special teams, because Cameron Cheeseman shit the bed for us. So it was just a crazy crap show altogether. Louie, you seem to impress me every time that you come on here, man. You're just more and more every day. Obviously, it's why you're very popular, and it's very hard to get a hold of you, get you on here. But I can't thank you enough for taking some time out for us, be able to talk about the latest news today with Dan Quinn, because this is absolutely crazy, and I'm glad that we were able to get your thoughts, brother, take some time out. Before we get out of here, I'd like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to. And we know they don't exist because they already are subscribed to you.
That's not true. That is not true. But I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a blast when I'm able to come and kick it with you guys. You can find me across all social media platforms. Louie Tee Network is what you type in. On IG, it's Louie Tee Network _ on Twitter or X, it's at Louie Tee Network. And on YouTube, it's at Louie Tee Network. So again, Louie Tee Network across all platforms is where you can find my work. My
man. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in with us for this episode of The Process of the Burgundy Zone. We'll be back on Sunday. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check that out then. And remember, don't forget that Ben Johnson is Cheddar Bob from 8 Mile. Remember that from now on. That's what we're referring to him as. All right, everybody. Ben. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys on Sunday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.